I think the Honorable Mao made it very clear that he was just talking. And I don't want to fault him. I was in Luzira in 2011 in B2. I slept on the mattress that the Honorable Mao left there. And actually, my first meal is what he left before he was taken to Nakasongola. So the Honorable Mao is a victim. What the speaker did yesterday was to shift the responsibility to a person who has washed his hands clean, that I am not responsible. That's why, Mr. Speaker, because I had to go by your guidance, the Attorney General who went to court was here. I don't know, but your guidance took us to the wrong address. That's why even the Honorable Mao is asking, have they done this? Have they done this? My only disappointment is not what he has said. The disappointment is that we have suffered with him. You can imagine I slept on your mattress, the one you left there. And I don't think you celebrate those days when Mr. Museveni took you to prison. That's why you must lead us in liberating and rescuing people who are suffering the same way you are suffering. That's the only disappointment I have. That you can seek to rationalize the disobeying of a Supreme Court judgment by government agencies. At least your presence there should be like last time when I saw you also regretting why you joined and you are threatening to leave. So if they are not following the Constitution, I have known you, Honorable Norbert Mao, for a long time, since you are an MP here. You've been pushing for constitutionalism. I want to hear that Mao who speaks about constitutionalism and rule of law, not one who rationalizing people who are disobeying Supreme Court order, Mr. Speaker.
Question of DSOs, HISOs, FISOs, and so on, who are involved in this process, because legally they have no place at all. And as we hear, some of them are demanding for money from people. If you want me to recommend you 10,000, 20,000 shillings and so on, I thought the minister's statement would comment on that issue. And also, the demarcation question. It's raised many eyebrows. The Electoral Commission has merged some electoral areas in a couple of places. I don't know what formula they are using, because, you know, there are areas in the urban centers where an LC1 chairperson superintends over more people than some colleagues in this House as members of Parliament. That's a fact in terms of numbers.
After the matter of the Right Honourable former candidate, Amama Mbabazi, was presented in court, court made the following observations. One, that the deployment and the use of technology should be followed up, whereas it's desirable, should be followed up by necessary regulation. I would like to ask the Minister how far with that matter. Secondly, the Minister, who I have a lot of respect for, clearly stated to this House that he would present comprehensive constitutional reforms for this House to discuss, and much of which would inform partly the issue touching electoral reforms in this case. And the country needs to know how far you've reached touching this matter. Finally, Right Honourable Speaker, the issue of our foreign nationals. Ugandans living in the diaspora have the desire to take part in the elections through voting, just like other countries, in different embassies and high commissions. We are doing voter update, and that is something we need to interest ourselves into, because they contribute to the development of this country, but they also remain our nationals that should take part in the elections. I would like to pose a question to the Honourable Minister in charge of Justice as to how far in implementing that matter to follow suit, just like the global trend is that nationals within the boundaries and those that are outside should take part in elections. Finally, we are going through a voter update exercise, and we have children that have gone back to school. I don't know who is picking up on, who is really concentrating on their records, so that we update the national register with their involvement. So that would bring in the question of the Honorable Matthias Mpuuga that he has talked about the comprehensive reforms that we need to address so that we have an election that is acceptable to all as a tool of democracy. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Between myself and the Honorable Ma, we normally do that, and I cannot take that to be personal, because I normally do it to others, and I don't take offense when somebody does that. But then, the matter of privilege is that representation is a right and an obligation. For a minister to come here does not answer directly the question they have asked, and simply veers into banter, is a problem. And then it disappears. And when we rise on procedural matter to put him correctly to answer the questions, Mr. Speaker, undermines our role of representation. I want to be on record that Honorable did not answer anything. He simply veered into banter and disappeared, Honorable Speaker. And I'm not sure those who read the question they raised and his answers, how they rate him, and how we shall go back to our people that want these questions answered, will judge the Honorable Ma. So other than speaking in colloquial English, he answered nothing. So I don't know how you guide Honorable Speaker when our role is undermined and the member simply veers, fails to answer, and then takes first leave.
We convene to discuss pertinent issues, matters of concern about people out there. That's actually true. And this matter is about people. This matter about Dr. Bya Besigye, about NUP supporters, about Karamajongs, who are represented by the Honorable Nakut Faith, who have been held for donkey's years by the General Court Martial. I think that those people matter. I thought that the people that Honorable Nakut represents matter. And that's why we are discussing this. Honorable Speaker, I have a question for the Attorney General. For the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. Honorable Speaker, the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs has given an update to this House. He has said, firstly, he was party to this matter because the Attorney General appealed this matter in the Supreme Court. The Attorney General legally is supervised by the Minister for Justice and Constitutional Affairs. So in effect, the Honorable Norbert Mao was in court through the Attorney General whom he supervises. He's given an update here, but which update I think is partial. It's incomplete. He has told us something that excited me a little bit until I didn't hear the end. He said that all entities, all the authorities who are meant to act on the Supreme Court order are doing what they are supposed to do. That excited me. Challenge is that he left it hanging. Who is doing what, Right Honorable Speaker? I think that update is important for us to know what exactly is happening. Because the paradox is this. While the Honorable Norbert Mao is telling us here that government is doing all that it's meant to do to implement this court order, the head of the executive, under which Honorable Norbert Mao works, has said that the Supreme Court made a mistake and is lambasting them. I have been watching a bit of what's happening in Chotera. The Chief of Defense Forces has said, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, the one who is promising to behead people and to hang them and so on, he has said that what the Supreme Court ordered is problematic and they are going to discuss it in the High Command to determine what to do. Now that's the paradox. I don't know what Honorable Mao is talking about in saying all the government entities meant to act are acting, because the head of the executive is saying no. The Chief of Defense Forces, who supervises court martials and so on, is saying no. So maybe if he could complete that update, saying everyone in government, every entity who is meant to do what they are meant to do is doing it. Who is doing what, Honorable Minister?
I'll not respond to the preamble of the Honorable Semuju because it is irrelevant. what the Supreme Court did is what linesmen do in a game of soccer. They simply raised the flag and said, you have crossed the line. Yes. The courts do not make the laws. It is not the courts that made the Constitution. Neither is it the courts that enacted the UPDF Act. So, if the court says the UPDF Act collides with the Constitution, that means we have homework to do. And the government is committed to doing that homework, to do wheel alignment. They have simply said the wheels are facing in different directions. So, that is in general terms. So, the media drama about the courts and so on, this is not the first time the court has thrown out laws. The Police Act, many provisions were thrown out. So,
please, honorable colleagues, the minister is holding the floor. Honorable Minister, you're holding the floor. I'll give you chances to respond.
Mr. Speaker, sir, you said earlier that we come here to talk, and I'm doing exactly that. Is there anything offensive that I've said? I've simply said that the government has a duty to respect the decision of the court. It's as simple as that. If the linesman raises the flag, it's the duty of the referee to blow the whistle, to acknowledge. These days we even have VAR. So all the drama is actually unnecessary. We stand by the Constitution, which says whenever there's a dispute about the interpretation of any law, the courts have the final word. That is obvious. Now, concerning implementation, I'm a lawyer, and all of you lawyers know that courts don't go to implement their own decisions. I do not know whether an order was extracted by the lawyers in these cases to take the next step. Because when those orders are then served on the people, whether on the government and so on, then you move the agencies. Even if the court has made the order, there are procedures that have got to be taken. The reason the government takes anybody to court is because the prosecution believes that they have enough evidence. Therefore, it will be up to them to now do the measures to transfer the cases to the civilian courts. And those are in the hands of the appropriate authorities, namely the DPP, and it is not in the hands of the prison authorities. The prison authorities are only holding the suspects. So, leave this to those who have been directed. I can only confirm that those who are supposed to do that work are doing it. I make this statement in response to your directive that I brief Parliament on the voter verification exercise going on in the country. This exercise is an important milestone giving effect to Article 1(4) of the Constitution, which provides that, I quote, "The people shall express their will and consent on who shall govern them and how they should be governed through regular, free and fair elections of their representatives or through referenda. Free and fair elections is therefore the bedrock on which our government is established. When we undermine that bedrock, we weaken the glue that keeps us together as a nation." Let me provide a brief context, Mr. Speaker. It's not lost on me that today is 6th of February, in common parlance known as Tarehe Sita. 44 years ago today, President Yoweri Museveni, who was then leader of the Uganda Patriotic Movement, launched a guerrilla war against the Uganda government, eventually overthrowing it in 1986. The declared reason for the guerrilla war was the failure to resolve peacefully the disputes about the 1980 elections. No wonder the preamble to our Constitution exhorts us to recall, and I quote, our history, which has been characterized by political and constitutional instability. The government welcomes the report of the Committee on Legal and Parliamentary Affairs with the technical support of officials from NERA. I would therefore like to assure the House that the Electoral Commission is doing the best with what they have. The Electoral Commission could not wait for the new NERA registration kits. They are using the old kits, which are numbering only 2,703. These kits have been assigned to sub-counties, and they move to parishes and wards on a rotational basis. I am informed that due to delays in release of funds and procurement, the new kits, numbering about 5,000, have arrived at NERA, but they are still being formatted. These new kits will not be used for the current voter update exercise, but will instead be used for the mass enrollment of citizens. Mr. Speaker, in my conversation with the Electoral Commission Chairman, I raised the question of the possibility of extending the deadline for the update. The Chairman told me that should the 10th February arrive when the exercise has not been completed, the Electoral Commission will announce measures for redress. For now, 10th February remains the deadline. What is being done in the current exercise, Mr. Speaker, is simply the compilation of raw data showing who is eligible to vote and where they should vote. After all the data has been captured, there will be a display process of the register. The display will allow for correction of the register, for instance, deleting non-citizens and the dead. This process is superintended by parish tribunals that are established by magistrates. These tribunals will determine any complaints and then forward the final data to the returning officer. The result of all these processes is what the citizens expect to be a credible and verifiable national voters register. Finally, in response to the concern that women of the Muslim faith are required to remove their religious dress for purposes of registration, I would like to give assurance that the Electoral Commission doesn't do anything that is different from what NERA does. The women in question have national IDs. They therefore had to go through the standard procedures of NERA in order for their full data to be captured, including having their photographs taken. In case there are any overzealous officials whose conduct insults the modesty of Muslim women, we undertake to investigate fully those instances and deal with such errant officers according to the law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.